program. More at wheelerhealth.org.
Helping you lead a healthier life. This is CURES.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CURES Show, where we explore cutting-edge wellness from credible sources. And today we're putting the focus on friendships, and specifically female friendships. There's a new book. It's called Estranged, and author Susan Shapiro Barash is joining me. I'm excited to take a deep dive with you, Susan, on the complexity of female friendships. I think we all know that's a real thing. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah, it's totally a real thing. I mean, women really suffer with this.
Yeah, and let's just get this out there. This is not the same for men, right?
No, it's not. It's really a very different experience. I mean, women invest so much. They share their secrets. They feel like this is a safe haven. And for men, it's much more parallel play.
Okay, yeah, even when if you're a mom out there and we have children, they often say boys will more parallel play and girls, kind of get into it more. So just the idea that we really want our friendships to be deep and really vulnerable, and to be able to have a friend or a sister that you tell everything to.
Exactly. And the trust level is so high that when there's a betrayal or when you aren't treated fairly by the friend, it's like heartbreak.
Yeah.
And until several years ago, because I've been investigating this for years, women really second guessed the idea of leaving a friend. Why would I leave this friend? I'll be the loser. I'll be alone. Our group will shun me. All these reasons, I depend on her for everything, or she knows too much. How could I really, leave this friend? And now things are changing and women feel more empowered to leave a friendship that has turned toxic. And that's what's so interesting.
Yeah, well, and again, the book is called Estranged because more women are thinking that estrangement could be an option. And here it is, how
Yes.
strained female friendships are mended or ended. So let's talk about this. Number one, how do you know if a friendship is toxic, and does it take a toll on your mental health?
It really does take a toll on your mental health. It's almost as if women told me, and I interviewed 150 women for this book, and then I have a questionnaire at the end for another 111 women. And what women were really saying to me is, how could this be happening? I feel like I'm consumed by what my best friend has done to me. She's no longer loyal. She stole my idea. She stole my boyfriend. She thinks her new friends are more important. And then, for mothers of daughters, even, young daughters, it's a whole thing. So I even have an interview in the book where a mother and daughter who were best friends with a mother and daughter ended up having a huge blowout.
Wow. Okay. So it really can take a toll on us. Is it different by age? I have a teenage daughter, and I've watched her go through some really heartbreaking stuff with friends in high school. And I know we all say, oh, high school. But, she's someone who's really gives her whole heart to someone. And sometimes I've watched it just get trampled on in ways that I couldn't even believe would happen. Is it anything to do with age, or is it just some females are toxic?
It has to do with both. But what's so interesting is I interviewed women between the ages of 20 and 80 in this book. And as I said, a very disparate, diverse group of women all across the country. And what they really talked about was this hope that the friend would always be there for them, the devastation when they were let down, and at every age, because it starts very early. I mean, I would say, having done a previous book on mothers and daughters, that by the time our daughters are 6 or 7, they know who the it girl is in the class. They know who the athlete is, the brainy one, the popular girl. And this lasts a lifetime, yet we have different stages of our lives. So women keep reinventing themselves. So when I talked to a group of young mothers, they were really bonding over all having babies or all having young kids. And they were sort of losing touch with their friends who were still single, didn't want children. So a lot of the friendships are mirroring, where we really want the same experience as our friends, so we feel understood.
Yeah. So for women who are having Let's just take a little bit of a deeper dive on what a toxic relationship looks like. Because it used to be, as you said, women at all costs would keep those female friendships, not even thinking that you could leave them. Or, even an estrangement with a sister or a mother where you just thought, well, that's your sister, your mother. And now more people are willing to examine if this relationship is healthy or not. But how do you know if the relationship is really toxic for you?
Well, it plays out in several ways. One is, where there's just something so terrible that the friend does. She's betrayed a trust, and you know that she isn't who you thought she was to you. And that's where it's really very clear. But there's so much that's cumulative that builds up where the friend is no longer available, the friend has changed values. I have a whole chapter in the book on how even in the last two elections, friends were breaking up over their politics and over vaxing with young mothers and their children,
Mm.
things that we really didn't see before. So, do you no longer have the same values? Is this friend someone who has really hurt you in some way? Has she betrayed you? Of course, is the big deal. Women talk about disloyalty all the time. And has she changed? And so the preface of the book is called Has She Changed or Have I? Because it's just like a romantic relationship in the sense that we either grow together or we grow apart.
So, what makes estrangement a radical, but you say necessary act of self preservation sometimes?
Right. Because it's harming you. You spoke about your mental health before, because this friendship is no longer healthy. You are no longer comfortable with the friend. You want to avoid her. You're surprised by her behavior. So that's the reason that you can't really be with her anymore. And estranging is there's the estranger, the one who starts it, and the estrangee, the one on the receiving end of it. But what really is so notable is how women in the last 2.5 years, based on my research, are able to say, you know what? I left this friend and I feel better for it because I wasn't hearing that in my earlier research.
So, what's changed, do you think?
I think COVID, I think the Me Too movement, I think women in a very patriarchal culture, which we all live in, are waking up to what their own power is. So they now have the courage to say this friendship doesn't work. And
Mm.
to be seek and to learn, it's kind of a form of self-care. We really learn about ourselves by leaving a friendship that's no longer good for us.
So, you would say it's a good idea to leave a friendship that's not working for it. What if it's been like a 2-decade friendship? Do you try something first, or is it like marriage? You don't usually go to therapy with a friend, but what if you're not ready for estrangement?
Well, it's definitely something that adds up. We don't just wake up, unless, of course, the friend has done something. Like I spoke to so many women of all different ages who said, my friend, seduced my husband, my
Wow.
ex-husband, my boyfriend, women in college, the boyfriend. So there it's pretty clear that
Yeah.
you understand that this is, pretty incendiary. But for when it's really building up, women make so many excuses. We grew up together. We were in graduate school together. Our mothers were friends. Our grandmothers were friends. Our girls grew up together, all different ages having excuses. But in the end, women are asking themselves, am I better off without this friend? And then being able to say, although a lot of ghosting, it's not like we sit down, as you said, there's no therapy for it, which is interesting. But so the breakup is often where women just kind of move away from the friend.
But
They
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 often
don't
don't.
really confront her.
Okay, so a lot of times in your research, you're estranged, but there was no big aha moment. You just kind of drifted, or, privately decided, I'm not going to talk to this person, with often not saying why. And is that the right approach, do you think?
Women don't like confrontation. They don't like conflict. They really are avoidant when it comes to that. And it's so loaded to leave the friend. I
Mm.
as I had mentioned to you, the idea of leaving a group, of, maybe being out of the circle because you and one of the other women in the group can no longer be besties. So there's so much that is required to have the courage to leave. But what's happening is that women are now really looking at it and saying to themselves, I can't do this another day.
Wow.
And before we were much more second guessing and making excuses for the friends.
So why do you think women often avoid conflict, even in damaging relationships?
We're taught to be the good girls, the pleasers, and pleasers don't make waves and we don't cause trouble. We don't even take action. I mean, but 75% of the women in this study told me that it was easier to leave a romantic relationship than a very close best friend. 79% of the women, and this is the interesting stat, this is what's trending, are saying, but you know what? I'm happy I did it. I'm happy that I was able to estrange.
Is there a script for it? I know you said that you often don't talk about it. Like, do people just ghost you? I mean, are people saying how they're estranging? I can imagine someone's listening going, I'm thinking I should probably be estranged from so-and-so. But what's the first step?
I I did a whole section in the book on ghosting because it's so much what happens. And with cell phones and social media, it's very hard to kind of disappear. And so you're taking action in the way you ghost today, but women do it often because, as I said, they're unable to sit down with their friend and say, look, this is what happened. You really disappointed me. You really hurt me. You you caused real damage in my life. Women just aren't so keen on doing that. And yet the decision to leave the friend is happening. And so there is a lot of ghosting. I did interview a few women who said they had a real sort of adult conversation about it, very sophisticated talk about why it no longer worked, but that isn't the majority.
Yeah, in the book, you interviewed about 150 people, as you said, from all walks of life, all ethnicities, different socioeconomic levels. So you didn't really get
Right.
into like, here's the prescriptive way of why you do this or how you do it. You're more noticing that estrangement is becoming the trend rather than staying in a damaging relationship at all costs.
That's right. That's what's really happening. And when it comes to what's so interesting about interviewing a diverse group of women is that this is an emotional need. So it really doesn't matter if you finished high school or you have an MBA from Harvard, if you're really troubled in your best friend relationship. It's all about the emotional longing, and women really want to belong, and women want to be mirrored by their best friend. So this, I'm not here to say this isn't a part of a difficult process where we're grieving. I'm here to say that on the other side, women are saying they feel better and that they had the courage to do it.
You know, I'm thinking of my own daughter with a situation where a best friend just, sort of just ghosted her and she had no idea why. And then she felt very much on the outside of this group. She ultimately, which may be very modern of her, had some real decision. I think she even made a list of like what, after going through this experience, like what does she want in a friend? What qualities would make a best friend? And she ended up switching friend groups and is much happier now. But maybe we wouldn't have
This is
done.
impressive. This
Okay.
is really impressive that she was able to do that. And that's exactly what older women, older females are doing too. They're really assessing their own needs. They're understanding why, reflecting on why those friendships no longer work and why another kind of friend would be better. And this is really very, very good for us.
It is. Okay, so this is my question. As moms, a lot of moms might listen to this and or grandmothers or people, where I'm
Right.
lucky enough my daughter will ask me a lot of questions. What should we be telling the younger generation about friendships?
That you want authenticity. You want a friend who is really there for you. Trust is such an issue for women. We've been taught by the culture to compete against each other for all the glittering prizes. We've been taught, who is excelling at something and why it makes us feel less. So we need to have friends who are really there for us in an understood and believable way. And when the friend fails us, we need to really look at what happened, just as your daughter did, and just as women of all ages are really doing now.
And I think it was so frustrating for her because there wasn't really a conversation where she ever found out why this friend just quit talking to her. She later found out some things that were told to other people, but someone who was a best friend just didn't tell her why all of a sudden she ghosted her. And it was over a guy. But like, so this is, this is the thing.
Which is one of the glittering prizes early on. She's in high school, right?
Right. Hmm.
So, yeah, so it starts early, lasts a lifetime. I interviewed a woman in a retirement community who told me that once she was widowed, all of the single women and the other widows, instead of welcoming her in, they said, it's really competitive around here. And so she felt very alone. So
Wow.
this like mean girl stuff goes on, starts early and goes on for a lifetime. And we need to really protect ourselves. We need to be more self-preserving in what we do with friends.
So that mean girl thing that we all know from the movie and we've seen in high school, that doesn't
Right, right.
change. It continues throughout our lifespan, even in retirement homes. You're going to find mean girls, and we need to be aware of them and protect ourselves.
We need to listen up. We're taught, although women don't always do it, but we are taught that when we meet a potential partner, we should listen to everything that the person says and not just be drawn in because they're so attractive or handsome or accomplished. With female friends, we really need to understand who they are. Will this, meeting new friends, and also, as I said earlier, the values change. We really need to understand who we are, and we have to understand who this friend is. And sometimes a third party, I have a whole chapter in the book on the idea of the faithless friend. That's what I call it. The friend where everything is fine until a third party comes into the equation. Say a love interest for one, and this could happen with someone your daughter's age. It could happen with a woman 6 years old. So a third party comes in and it shakes up the whole dyad. And so the two of you are no longer who you were because something has interrupted and gotten in the way. So that's one scenario. I interviewed women who spoke about being, and this is really a serious chapter, about being the enabling friend, where a friend has some kind of addiction. And what do you do as the friend? Are you helping or are you harming her? And is it finally harming you? And then I look at friends who have spilled secrets. I look at jealousy and what that does to friendship. And in any of these scenarios, at some point, we have to say enough. It's no longer working for us. And that's what's really finally happening.
Wow. Okay. So definitely something that is trending in a different way, and maybe even a more positive way. We're going to take a deeper dive into female friendships in a moment. I want to take a quick listen to one of our sponsors.
Struggling with gambling? Wheeler Health's Better Choice program offers personalized support and treatment to help you regain control. Visit wheelerhealth.org to learn more and take the first step towards recovery today.
And we are back talking about a groundbreaking book called Estranged, where the author interviews 20 to 80, rather 150 women, ages 20 to 80, about this emerging trend, estrangement among female friends. So, and I want to bring you back in and talk about Susan Shapiro Barash is our author today, and she's written many books. One of them is entitled "Tripping the Prom Queen." I have to figure out what that one's about. I meant to read the back cover before I talk to you. That's a good title, but
Thank you.
But as you,
That's a look at female rivalry.
okay,
And that actually, and what competition and envy and jealousy do. I look at the three kinds of rivalry for women, and it really is reflective of a very, again, patriarchal culture where we're really looking at how women are positioned, and we're taught, and this even feeds into our friendships, we are taught early on that there is not enough pie, that we live in a limited goods society where if you get it, I might not have a chance. And for our daughters in particular, it's so difficult because we want them to have all the options there are. But we're taught that we're always competing with women. So even best friends end up competing, and that's part of the problem too.
Certainly I've experienced that in my life. I think we all have. But I don't know. Am I just Pollyanna that, okay, my college friends, and maybe I'm just really lucky, and we don't see each other every day. So that could be part of it. But of my 5 core college friends, and we're all in a group text, and I really feel like these women have my back. And I haven't experienced that with them. I have experienced that in my life, but I've sort of moved away from those people. Can we? Or is it Pollyanna to think we can just have this group of really good friends who really do support us?
Ideally, sure. And it's what we strive for. And it would be a safe haven in a tough world. And women say, husbands come and go, jobs come and go, but my best, children grow up, but my best friend, she's there forever. That is the hope. And that will always be the hope because we so want to be in that kind of relationship, so close, so understood by the friend. So the idea that you have it is terrific, that you have these, 5 friends who are really there. But I believe that most of us have at some point encountered a friendship that's really failed us
Oh, for sure.
and
For
has.
sure. So part of the subtitle here is how strained female friendships are mended or ended. Is there a barometer of how we should mend or end? And let's say you want to mend it. How do we do that?
In the book, we talked about the 150 women, but I was able per chapter to get one long interview of both sides. So she said, so both friends were willing to talk to me after a breakup. And in 2 of those chapters, the women were able to actually get back together. And they really worked at it and they had to own what had happened. And in one case, they said, we're close again, but never quite as we were. There's always the history of what happened.
Okay.
But we are friends again, and we're so happy to be back together. And then there were stories where the women said, no, never again. So for those who mend, it's with great effort and a very heightened sense of self-awareness.
Now, what about if we're lucky enough, which I guess I'm lucky in this department, my husband is very supportive, and I consider him, though he's my husband, like a best friend. Of course, we need our female friends. I think otherwise we probably fall victim of trying to make our husband be everything, and they can't be everything. But there are those women who feel safer. Maybe they've been burned so many times that they just kind of retreat from that and have very, very surface friendships or female friendships, or maybe they're just too busy. And their husband or the male in their life is really who they go to with everything. What's your take on that?
I believe that happens. And I've written 3 books on the role of wife in America. So I've really looked at how high we hold the bar with our husbands and how we do want them to be best friends, lovers, providers. We want it all. And it works. But this is really a gender specific situation. The idea of like with like, the theory of homogamy, that we're females, we're in it together. We are women, we are not like men, is a lot of what fosters these friendships. The idea that we have our husbands, our love interests, but that we definitely bond over being female. So it's really a very separate experience. And it's great to be close to a husband and to get so much from that relationship. But women are talking about these friendships as like another part of their lives. They're really looking for what they don't get in any place, even with a mother, a sister, that the friend is really very specific.
And I think that you're giving people a bold way to reconsider, in that we also used to think that no matter what, your mother's your mother, she's your mother. But there are mothers that are cruel to their daughters, and women are having the ability to stand up and maybe estrange from even a family member, a sister or a mother. And do you look at that and that also being an act of self-preservation, that you don't just put the label of the person and say, well, carte blanche, they get to do whatever they want because they're my whatever?
But it's so interesting that you bring that up, because I decided, and I talked to my editor about having one sister story per chapter because I had done a study years ago on sisters, and the sisters who were close to their sisters said, I don't really need to have best friends the way my friends who don't have sisters have, that have these relationships. And in this study, so many of the women said to me, she was like a sister to me. People thought we were sisters. We were so close. So I listened to the sisters and I, document it. And what's distinctive is that when there's a breakup with your sister, there's always the mother hovering over you and the family obligation, the family commitment is there. Whereas our friends, we choose. If anything, think of Sex in the City. These women are fictive family. They are the chosen family in a way, not assigned to us, but these friendships are our choice, our selection. And that's why it's so dire when it fails. And that's why it's so meaningful when it works.
Yeah. So as we run out of time, I just want some advice from you. If women are listening and they're considering estrangement for self-preservation, what's your advice for them?
To have the courage to do it, to really look inward and think about why you're doing this, and to consider the other side, the risk reward, and to better reflect on what kind of friendships you want going forward. To understand that estrangement is really, as you say, self-preservation, very healthy at times and a way for us to move forward.
So it's really about thinking, do these bonds sabotage instead of support, and then getting that courage to walk away because it obviously is easier probably to stay and not disrupt the group or not disrupt the past.
Exactly. And women today of all ages are really finally saying, I estranged, I did it, I'm better off.
Well, Susan Shapiro Barash is a gender expert. She's taught at this at the university level. She's written many books, articles in the Daily Mail and other places. But, if you're thinking of what is my friendship situation, what should I be doing now in 2025? This is a great book. I'd love to put the cover up one more time, John. Thank you. Estranged, How Strained Female Friendships Are Mended or Ended. Again, this is a research-based book. You'll hear lots of stories, and perhaps it can help you in your own life decide, are you just avoiding conflict or are you choosing self-love? So thank you so much for being with us, Susan. And shout out real quick your website so people can find you there as well.
SusanShapiroBarash.com, and I'm on Instagram and love to hear from readers. And thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's an important conversation. We appreciate you being with us. And on the other end of this, share it with your friends. You can maybe talk about this. And if you're enjoying the CURES podcast, by all means, we would love it if you support the work by liking and subscribing on whatever platform. Have a great day, everyone, and be well.